Hey guys, how's it going? Firebox here. Did you know that Iron Mace is planning to remove solos and duos from High Roller sometime in the near future? This means that you will no longer be able to play outside of a trio, or at least against other trios, if you want to play with any amount of gear because of how the current gear system works. I think this patch that just released has a lot to talk about. There's a lot of pros, but there's also a lot of cons. So sit back and let's talk a little bit about the direction that Iron Mace is currently taking Dark and Darker. I want to start this video off with the pros of what I think the patch did well on. So if you want to skip to the cons, you're welcome to. I'll leave timestamps down below. First things first, they removed bunny hopping and hot swapping. These two mechanics have been kind of the bane of Dark and Darker for a long time. Bunny hopping allowing you to cast spells and shoot arrows while maintaining momentum through very perfectly timed jumps that are also coincidentally tied to your game's frame rate. And most people tied the jumps to the mouse wheel anyway, so there really wasn't a whole lot of skill involved. It was more just mechanically doing what you needed to do in order to kind of cheese the bunny hopping. And at the end of the day, you needed a good PC to do it. There was a big advantage if you had high frame rates. So I am personally glad that bunny hopping is gone. Hot swapping was where you could manually drag your weapon across your character screen, and you could basically bypass the downside of what happens when you swap a weapon. So instead of having to wait for the animation to go through, you're able to shoot instantly, and the other person could not see you swap, so it would happen instantaneously. Personally, Dark and Darker is a better place without bunny hopping and hot swapping, so I'm very glad Iron Mace finally managed to get rid of these. I would love to see them be able to fix shields, hopefully in the future. These are still kind of inconsistent, where it feels like you should block something, but it doesn't really block like it should. Some people have said that it works a little bit better for them after the recent patch, so if you notice anything that Iron Mace hasn't said in their own patch notes, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Next on my list of pros might be controversial, but I'm going to explain myself as best I can. The circle being back in High Roller specifically feels pretty good to me personally. As somebody who's been playing the game since playtest 3, there was always a part of me that kind of missed the zone and the random portals. It just kind of felt good to just kind of stumble across your escape instead of having the guaranteed extracts every single game. I didn't really mind the shifting gameplay. The problem was this season in particular. It felt like the increase in extraction camping became really, really bad because of the continuous dungeon system. And since I have started playing with the circle, I have not noticed any extraction camping, which makes the game just significantly more fun. I have also noticed a lot less third parties. You could argue both of these kind of stemmed from the continuous dungeon system being added, so it's more of a band-aid fix to fix that system. But Iron Mace seems very hell-bent on keeping the continuous dungeon system. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. So I'm going to put this as a pro, because the circle being back in HR, I think is better than what we had before, where everyone just kind of keeps spawning in halfway through the game, and then everyone just kind of spends the whole game camping different extracts. I think it just makes for a more fun experience. There is a downside that comes with the circle, but I'll talk about that a little bit later when we get to the con section. Reckless Barbs also received a nerf from 85% armor pen to 75% armor pen. This, in my opinion, is a great change. I think this was probably too strong or too long. This gave Barbs the ability to pretty much one-shot any class. One well-timed headshot could be the death of even a high-geared PDR fighter. You could argue, well, maybe you should be able to one-shot. I am personally more of a fan of longer combat, so I don't think one-shot mechanics really are great for games like this. I think if you want to play a game with quick time to kill, just play a shooter. So I'm personally okay with bringing that down to 75%. I think that's still very strong. They also nerfed the windlass by a few points of damage. I think a little bit of armor pen nerf as well. I think any nerfs to weapons that can one-shot or mechanics that can one-shot, I don't think we need those. I think it's fine to have stuff that can do a lot of damage, but I'm personally happy with seeing nerfs to stuff like this to maybe extend combat, make it a little bit longer. Warlocks also received a nerf with their shard change from 5 to 2. There was a really big problem with this where they buffed the Warlock shards to give +1 all. The Warlocks were running around with 5 shards, not spending them, and getting permanent +5 all to their kits, which felt very, very strong, especially in certain gear brackets where you couldn't really get plus all stats. For example, 24 gear score. So it was just kind of an unfair advantage. They have nerfed this from 5 to 2, which I think is the right call. It really should have never been 5 all in the first place, but I am glad that Iron Mace finally did decide to nerf this. It was pretty unfun to play against. Sorcerer got some new perks and spells to play around with. I haven't messed around with this too much, but I am glad that Iron Mace is moving forward to make Sorcerer feel like a more complete class. Rondel and Rapier finally got a nerf. One of the most unfun builds to play against in the game is probably Rondel Fighter or Demon Glee Fighter. So both these weapons have been nerfed, so hopefully they feel a little bit less oppressive. Unused weapons also got buffed. For example, the Halberd's second attack got buffed from, I think it was 0.95 to 1.05. Castellan got a buff as well. Really just any buffs that we can do to weapons that are obviously not meta or aren't seeing any use, I think is great. This get a little bit boring, seeing the same exact weapon in every single lobby. And my final pro that, again, people might not agree with me on, but I'll explain myself, is the Goblin Merchant no longer giving gear back in High Roller, only normals. I have been around in this game for a long time, and I think there is something to be said about having a risk and reward for when you go into a dungeon. The risk of losing your kits in High Roller really did not feel very high, between the extractions being so easy to go to and just being able to constantly get your gear back basically for free if you consider how expensive gear can get in the auction house. I think that it's overall a good thing that gear will feel more impactful and people have to kind of decide on what gear they want to bring in, knowing that they might not necessarily just get it back for free. There was also a separate issue where people would run away from you and drop their gear on the ground or try to hide it from you to prevent you from getting it and getting it back for free themselves. This was kind of just bad gameplay anyway. So I think in general, it's probably good that it's not in HR. I don't think it ever really needed to be. And if they want to bring HR to more of a high risk, high reward like it used to be, then I think this is the right call. Being in normals, I think is fine though. It's normal, so hopefully they don't take away Goblin Merchant for normals. I think we should just keep that there. Now I want to get into the cons. First, I want to talk about what I briefly mentioned at the beginning of this video. Solos and duos removed from High Roller. So what exactly does that mean? If you were around back in the early playtest before Goblin Caves was added, you might remember that everybody had to queue into one specific mode. This was mixed mode. So if you were solo, duo, or trio, you would fight other solos, duos, or trios. You could not differentiate from this, so you could not only fight solos, you could not only fight duos. Everyone was mixed in with the max lobby size being trio. I think it's important to keep in mind that the game is in a significantly different spot from early playtests to right now. We didn't have things like streamer trios running around buff-balling entire lobbies. We had a lot more Timmies, new players. No one really knew how to play the game. I think expecting a solo or a duo to be able to kill a competent team of 3 that is geared, knows what they're doing, is really just not fair. And instead of having the effect of those players going into High Roller and having fun, I think those players will just leave the game. I'm going to be completely honest with you. If they remove solos from Dark and Darker, that is probably going to be the last time that I ever play this game. I enjoy Dark and Darker a lot. I know I don't play it all the time on my channel because I just try different games out. But if there is no solos, there is no game for me. I'm currently enjoying playing this game in the current patch. But if they do decide to remove solo, I don't have any interest in fighting trios every time I play the game. It doesn't really sound fun to me, so I will personally move on. I really hope IRONMACE changes their mind. Technically, they didn't say that it's guaranteed, but they're definitely thinking about it, so hopefully we can change their mind and they don't go through with this. My second con is the Cleric and Wizard spell duration nerfs. Ignite and Haste got nerfed for Wizard. If you're not aware, Wizard feels pretty bad to play in solo, specifically because you're so likely to die to Invis Rogues, Druids hitting you with the Silence ability. It's just not really great. So one of the more fun builds to play is the Ignite builds with either the Magic Staff or the Rondell Dagger. Well, Ignite has been changed from 15 seconds to 8, and Haste also got nerfed from, I think, 8 to 6. This is kind of just, it feels unnecessary. I don't know if this was needed for trio balance or not, but this is so bad for gameplay. It basically kills off those two builds entirely. You will probably never see them again. It's just not a long enough duration to have enough impact. Cleric also got nerfed. Protection, Bless, and Divine Strike got huge nerfs in duration. Protection went down to like 6 seconds. Bless is 8 and Divine Strike is like 6. So everything's been nerfed by like 50 to 75%. It's crazy. You will probably never see a solo cleric again that's using spells. And even for teams, I just don't really understand why you would make the spell duration so low. It basically means by the time you buff them, and you go to look at your teammate, you're already having to rebuff your teammate again. It just feels like bad gameplay. So I personally see this as a overall negative. My third con is that the magic power bonus nerf also just feels like too much. There is an over 50% difference in magic power in some cases. Some people's arena kits went from 60% damage to 30%, for example. This is just a really big nerf to do all at once. A 50% damage nerf is absolutely insane. You know, it's one thing to nerf something by 5%, 10%, maybe 20%. To go all the way to like 50, that is crazy. I think there's such a thing as over nerfing right off the rip, and I think they've kind of done that here. I would have rather seen them do something more of an incremental nerf if they felt magic power bonus was currently too strong. My fourth con is going to be that the circle closing on bosses is happening too early. Because of the randomization, you're having bosses spawn on like the top corners of the map, for example. And because of that, the circle will just close on the boss immediately, giving you no chance to do it. So something needs to be done in order to make the circle feel okay, but also make bossing not feel just completely terrible. Spawn the boss at least somewhere near the middle, so the zone spawns last on it. It just doesn't feel great spawning and then realizing the circle is already covering the boss. My fifth con is going to be for Bard. Accelerando and Allegro, the duration got nerfed, which doesn't really feel great for the same reason that Cleric and Wizard got nerfed. Having to constantly play your songs at a 6-second increment, went from 6 down from 8, that just doesn't really feel great to me. And I imagine a lot of other people as well. You want to be doing other stuff besides just playing music. So I don't know if it's really fair for a bard to have a 6-second window for playing 2 different songs to keep buffs up. Also, Harmonic Shield doesn't even work for your team now. Bard is supposed to be a team buff class, but Harmonic Shield doesn't work on them. It only works on yourself. So it feels like, I don't know, it just feels kind of weird. I'm not really sure if I agree with these bard changes either. If you're someone who plays Trio a lot and you have some insight on this, feel free to leave that in the comments below. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. My sixth con is going to be a little bit controversial too, I'm sure. And it's, where are the Druid nerfs? This class has felt oppressive really since the very beginning that it got introduced. I have been pretty open about feeling that Dark and Darker would be a better game if Druid never got released. Instead, it feels like Druid just has been imbalanced for a long time. I know that we've gotten some nerfs here or there, but the class still just feels way too strong. I think the best way I can describe why I feel like it's so silly, right now, they have the best mobility in the entire game. You remember what other class had really good mobility that they spent a ton of time constantly nerfing? Rogue. Rogues had double jump. Even now, to this day, if you take double jump, you lose 10 movement speed. It's really weird to me that we have a class that has just completely open mobility with really no downsides, even bypassing mobs, and the circle danger because they can go through doors. Meanwhile, there's no downside to taking this stuff, They can even use bear form to break those doors if they want to. So I don't really understand why this class is like the golden child of being able to just do everything. Even in trios, the class is insanely strong as far as their heals are concerned. So I would really like to see something balanced here. I'm sure there's a lot of people that agree with me, and then there's some druid mains that are going, oh, class is balanced, I don't know what you're talking about. But either way, yeah, I'm going to put this out there. I think druid is still just not really fun for Dark and Darker as a whole. I would love to see them balanced, like, at all. That would be great. Maybe adding holes to every door, like, you know, closing the holes. Maybe that would be an answer. I'm not really sure, but something would be nice to fix this class at least a little bit. And my last con is going to be that the door meta has not been fixed. I was really hoping to see something done with this. I have been recommending for what feels like a year now that when you open and close a door, the speed is exactly the same. It feels really silly chasing somebody and watching them close every single door that they left open in your face because the closing speed is so much faster than the opening speed. Now, if you're like a druid or something, it doesn't matter because you just go through the door anyway. But if you're a class that can't phase through the door, it's pretty hard to chase because there's just not enough time. Because by the time you open that door that they shut on you, they're already long gone. They've probably shut another door in your face, or they just kind of ran off. So, I don't know. It would feel more balanced to me personally if there was some kind of drawback. At the very least, having that be the same exact speed, so you can't just have infinite escape with doors behind you. I feel like the door meta has been going on in Dark and Darker for a really long time, and it sure would be nice to see this get somewhat resolved. That's going to be everything that I wanted to talk about as far as the game is concerned. I just wanted to take a moment to speak with you guys and kind of talk about what I thought was going well for the game, what I thought was not going well, and really the solo and duo change is the big one. I'm really hoping that doesn't end up going through. I'm hoping to be able to play Dark and Darker for the long run. Even if I don't play it as my primary game, I still want to be able to play it and make content every once in a while. I do have plans to play a bunch of other extraction games. I never really made a video on this, but Midnight Walkers, Mistfall Hunter, Vault Breakers, and there's a few others that are on my radar as far as extraction games go for this year. So look forward to that on my channel sometime soon. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, helps the channel, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time, alright? Take care.